Hollow Knight is an action-adventure indie game developed by Team Cherry. This action-packed game takes you on a journey unlike anything else. This led Hollow Knight to have over... Wait, am I reading this correctly? Over 385,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam. Alright, but even with all the hype around the game, I have never played it. And with the release of Hollow Knight Silksong only a couple of weeks away, I decided what better time to throw myself into the stunning world of Hollow Knight. If you find yourself enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It helps the channel out a lot. I start my adventure falling down a giant hole. Once at the bottom, I'd start breaking walls that were in my way, and I would even defeat my first enemy. I would then do some parkour until finally making it to the top of the tutorial area. I'd break down a giant door, and after jumping off a bridge, I'd find myself in Dirtmouth, a fading town. This would end up being my home base that I would return back to throughout the game. I'd run through the main section of the town until making it to a giant building. I would enter and find out that this place was the Temple of the Black Egg. I'd speak to Quirrell, who would give me some lore, and I'd move on. I would eventually come face to face with some beetles. I'd fight the beetles to try and become more comfortable with the combat of the game and the movement. I would finally jump down into my first cave. Too bad it was blocked by some gates. So I jumped back out and decided to run left. Here is where I'd be introduced to even more creatures that would try and kill me. At this point in time, I still didn't know how to heal. So I was pretty much just hoping that throughout these fights, I wouldn't get hit, and I would hopefully figure it out later. Some of the new creatures would jump at you, and some of them just ended up looking like some really derpy flies, that whenever I hit would just fly away from me. Eventually, I'd find this chain that led upwards. I'd use it and find myself back in Dirtmouth. I quickly realized that this was probably where I was meant to go in the first place. Oh well, too late now. I'm back down into the mines and finally got a title telling me where I was, the Forgotten Crossroad. I'd proceed to straight away jump into a termite and die. Rip the flawless run. I decided to look around a little bit more after my death, and I ran into this big beetle. To be honest, I thought this might be a mini boss or something, but I was mistaken. I defeated the beetle and was rewarded with tons of Geo, the currency of Hollow Knight. And I also freed what looked to be a grub from a glass prison. It crawled on the ground and just left. This puzzled me, but there was no time for me to question it. I had a game to beat. After more travels, I'd come face to face with the child laborer. I never returned to this guy. I just really wanted to mention that even in a cute cartoon indie game, there is still always room for a quick history lesson visual demonstration.
Master got me working. Someday Master set me free.
I'd now proceed to run around aimlessly for the next 20 minutes, trying to figure out where to go, until I would get locked in a tiny room with a massive flight called the Grozmother. The Grozmother would be the first boss I'd face in Hollow Knight. This boss was an introductory boss that would only have 3 moves. One where it would bounce around the room, smashing its face into everything. Another where it would just do a quick headbutt into me if I'd stayed too close for it for too long. And then the final attack would be where even from across the little room, the Grozmother would just charge at me. Because I was still working on the controls, and this was my first boss fight, I did take a few hits. That didn't stop me, and I beat the Grozmother on my first attempt. And with its defeat, I was given a fat stack of 50 Geo. After the Grozmother, I found a little hut with a cricket in it named Sly. I spoke with Sly and he told me about how he was going to move to Dirtmouth and that I could buy goods off him once he was there. I would also run into another bug, but this one would offer me a map. This one would be one of the few maps I'd purchase. After the map, I'd head over to my next boss fight, which would be with the False Knight. The False Knight is one of the more simple fights. For this fight, the boss only has 4 moves, all of them really easy to dodge. One being where he slams his mace down, trying to hit you with it. Another where he slams the mace down, causing a shockwave. One where he jumps at you trying to sit on you. And the final move is where he drops fiery balls from the ceiling. But like I said, all of these moves are really easy to dodge. Something I found out pretty quickly in Hollow Knight is that greed will get you killed. If you try to get too many hits in on a boss or go for too many heals, you will get hit and more than likely die. Every boss fight has its periods where you have a chance to heal or do damage. It's important to do damage in these moments and then focus on surviving until the chance comes around again. I executed this perfectly in the False Knight fight, with me being able to defeat the False Knight on my first try, after smacking him in the head enough. After the False Knight fight, I do more exploring and find this hut that had a snail shaman in it. I sat down at the bench and then went over and talked with the shaman. The shaman would give me my first ability called Vengeful Spirit. This ability would allow me to use my saved up spirit energy to shoot out a spirit projectile that would damage anything in its path. This would be a very helpful ability to have. He then made me go through a test where I was able to use my Vengeful Spirit. At the end of the test, there was another bug blocking my path, so I used some Vengeful Spirit shots on it and defeated it, allowing me to finish the shaman's test. With the test complete, I'd head over to the green path. This new section would introduce me to more new enemies. Most of them would explode into a cloud, and that cloud would do damage. This made it quite annoying to work my way through the green path. During my journey on the green path, I ran into the map creator again. I would yet again dip into my life savings and buy another map, but unlike the previous map, this one showed nothing. I had been scammed. I guess no matter what world you're in, scammers will always exist. After dealing with a scammer, I continued working my way through the green path, fighting all of the new creatures, and eventually making it to our next boss fight with the boss, Hornet. For my first attempt on the Hornet fight, I would die almost instantly, because I only had one life left, so I quickly returned for my remap. The Hornet fight introduces a new style of fighting into Hollow Knight. Whilst most bosses like to get up close and personal with you, Hornet likes to keep her distance so she can throw her needle at you. This is also shown by her AoE attack that covers a small area around her, but that doesn't mean she only attacks from a distance. She also likes to launch into the air and then dive at you with her needle. Even though this was a new style of fighting in Hollow Knight, that didn't mean it was hard to beat. Like usual, I kept my distance when I needed to, and I striked in the gaps in her attacks. I also decided to try using my Vengeful Spirit on her when she was far away. Hornet wasn't the only one that could play the distance game. In the end, Hornet escaped from the fight, but left behind a mask. I'd interact with it and it would give me the dash ability called Mothwing Cloak. This ability would finally allow me to traverse Hollow Knight way quicker. After defeating Hornet and getting the Mothwing Cloak, I'd move on and eventually find this place that had a bench and a toll. I decided to pay it and a giant creature known as a stag shows up. This stag will take me to any other stag station that I've unlocked. I wouldn't use this feature much, but to be honest, I thought it was a really cool system that had to be mentioned. I kept moving and somehow ended up in a place called Mantis Village. Here I'd get the ability Mantis Claw. Eventually, I also made it to a place called the City of Tears. Now, it's probably important to say, I literally had no idea where I was going for most of this gameplay. I was lost and just randomly running around hoping to find where to go in the City of Tears. I ran back into Hornet, I had a quick chat with her, and by chat, I mean she didn't stop talking and I sat there quietly with my mouth shut. Eventually, she yet again flew away with her magical needle. Before leaving the City of Tears, I'd run into a little boss. I didn't even know what bug it was, but it wasn't my biggest challenger in the City of Tears. That title goes to the Soul Master. The Soul Master fight is a fight filled with fireballs and dash and dive attacks, making for a pretty lethal combination. This is because this boss could fly around and there wasn't really a roof to stop him. This meant there wasn't lots of chances to do damage to the Soul Master, and not only could this boss just spawn fireballs and spin them around itself, it could also just shoot them at me. This meant that I was spending lots of time dodging fireballs, just trying not to die. Thankfully, however, this boss, even with all of these little factors, wasn't too tough. The attacks kind of felt like after you dodged them a few times, you'd been dodging these attacks your entire life. With each dodge and each attack I hit on the boss, I managed to work him down, bit by bit, until finally I had defeated the Soul Master. For defeating the Soul Master, I got the new ability Desolate Dive, which would pretty much allow me to slam through weak floors with a ground pound attack. With the ground pound ability acquired, I headed over to where I saw the child miner and headed over to a weak floor and ground pound my way through it into Crystal Peak. This would be a new location filled with new rock creatures that could shoot lasers, and some were even immune to physical attack. In the Crystal Peak, I ended up dying, and because I hadn't sat on a nice cozy bench that would give me a spawn point closer to the Crystal Peaks, I was now back all the way at the City of Tears. After this tragedy, I decided not to return to Crystal Peak, and instead to head to a building that I had noticed a while ago. I recognized the building from a speedrun I had seen on the game ages ago, and I quickly searched up a video and saw this awesome speedrunner trick that I had to try. Now, to do this trick, I'd need to let an enemy kill me in this corner over here. Once dead, my ghost would be chilling there and I'd spawn back in on the bench that I had sat at previously. I'd then lure my ghost over to this wall. I would continuously jump against the wall, and if done correctly, I'd be able to pogo off the ghost and just make it up into a new section I'm not meant to be in yet, called Blue Lake. Here, I would now be able to just dash across the lake, pretty much skipping this entire section. After crossing the Blue Lake, I would eventually find this place that had the 3 masks that were on the black egg. I went over and inspected it. I'd get knocked out by some ghosts and wake up in a new area. Here I'd complete some parkour and run into this glowing creature. It'd speak to me for a bit and then teleport away. I would inspect where it previously was and I would acquire a new ability called Dream Nail. This ability would be crucial finishing Hollow Knight. After getting the Dream Nail, I headed back to the City of Tears. I'd fight my way through more of the building and I would even run into a golden heart that once defeated gave me tons of geo. I fought my way up some more floors of the building until making it to my next boss fight. I noticed that there was a pathway I could parkour up to above the fight, so before I entered the arena, I headed up there and cut down a chandelier. I found out that this actually destroys one of the bosses, meaning I had one less enemy to face, which is always a plus. I would now enter the boss arena and begin my fight with the Watcher Knight. The Watcher Knight fight is easily one of the most difficult fights in Hollow Knight. This is due to the fact that you don't just verse one knight, you verse a total of 5 and 6 if you don't knock down the chandelier. You'll always be versing 2 at a time, and with their rolling attacks that they love to continuously do, you end up needing to focus on 2 different knights coming at you from opposite sides. To be honest, this is one of the aspects I found most difficult about this fight. I had learned to not solely focus on just one of the knights and learned to spread my attention between them. Eventually, after enough tries, I started to get into a rhythm, learning how many hits I could land after certain moves, when I would have a chance to heal in the fight, and even times I'd be able to hit both of them with a vengeful spirit shot. This allowed me to slowly get better at the fight and finally finish off the Watcher Knight. After being the Watcher Knight, I would stumble across a Dreamer. I'd walk up to the Dreamer and hit it with my Dream Nail, allowing me to transcend into its dream. Here I'd find the Dreamer and slash it until it exploded. I'd then suck up its essence with my healing button, and then I would see that one of the Dreamer's masks that were on the black egg was now destroyed. With one of the masks destroyed, I'd now head over to one of the stag stations and use the stag to get to Dirtmouth. And here I'd buy the Lumafly lantern off of Sly. I'd then head back into the crossroads, and I'd find out that the crossroads were now infected, and all the creatures that were inside the crossroads were also infected. It seemed to make them more aggressive and be able to withstand more attack. After discovering the infected crossroads, I finally returned to Crystal Peak. I began working my way through Crystal Peak trying to find out what little secrets were lying in these mines. It seemed like it was just an entire parkour puzzle where I'd need to dodge through bugs and lasers, and I did end up having a close call where I almost died. Thankfully, however, I didn't, and I managed to get down to what kind of looked like a robot. I inspected it and received the ability Crystal Heart. This ability would allow me to concentrate force into the ground and release it all at once, launching me through the air. This would be another amazing ability for traversing Hollow Knight quicker. With the Crystal Heart ability obtained, I now decide to try another speedrunner trick. For this trick, you try and get onto this little wall and activate your Crystal Heart quick enough to stop you on the wall. You then would use the ability to launch you through this small gap onto a wall, where you would then jump up onto this path, which takes you straight to Fog Canyon. In Fog Canyon, there are jellyfish everywhere. An important thing to note is that you don't want to hit the large jellyfish, because if you destroy them, they end up shooting a very powerful tracking shot at you that takes away 2 of your lives. So I cautiously worked my way through Fog Canyon until I found the Teacher's Archive. I kept pushing forward through the paths until I found my next boss arena. Now, before entering this fight, I just wanted to quickly remind you to subscribe if you're enjoying the video, and if you'd like to see me speedrun or even do a 100% run of Hollow Knight, let me know down in the comments below. Now let's get back to the video. The Umu fight is far from an easy fight to say the least. Umu, like other bosses, may have a small moveset, but to make up for that, the moves that are used can really mess you up if you're not aware of how they work. From lightning chasing you around the arena, to every square inch of the boss room having little lightning charges spawn and go off damaging you, this fight is tough. And to top it all off, there is no floor in the arena. So you need to jump from platform to platform, dodging Umu, whilst also dodging Umu's attacks. Now, usually the way this fight works is that Umu will attack 3 times, and our good old buddy Quell will enter the arena and slash through Umu, removing its electrical skin, allowing you to do some damage before it regenerates. And then you just simply rinse and repeat. It's a very simple and straightforward boss fight, which is something I loved about the fight. Even though the fight was so simple, it still never felt like an easy fight. For a first-time Hollow Knight player, the fight was still so challenging. Eventually, I managed to defeat Umu. After defeating Umu, I would now find my second Dreamer in a tank. I would remove the barrier, and I would use my Dream Nail on the Dreamer and enter its dream. I would now hit the Dreamer, suck up its essence, and that was another Dreamer's mask on the black egg destroyed. After destroying the second Dreamer's mask, I'd end up running into a place called the Deep Nest. Here I'd face creatures that could not only jump at me, but would also just appear out of the ground in numbers and swarm me. Besides for the little bugs, the Deep Nest acted as another stunning location in Hollow Knight that had its own unique setting and vibe. I ended up running through tunnels that had been created by the centipedes until I ran into the map man again. Even though he had already scammed me before, surely he wouldn't again, right? Right? I was scammed yet again. Why do I keep giving this man my geo? After recovering from being scammed again, I eventually ended up at the distant village. Here, I'd parkour my way up into a webbed cocoon and sit on the bench that was surrounded by lots of people. Too bad for me, this was a trap. First scammed, now trapped, and attacked! What a world! I would now wake up, stuck in cobwebs and alone. I would free myself and find out I'm in the beast's den. I would continue to work my way through the spider-infested caverns, fighting some large spiders that with their swipe attack removed 2 of my lives. Eventually, however, I found my third and final dreamer. Like usual, I smacked the dreamer with my dream nail, invaded its dreams, and beat it up and gave it the good old suck. In its dreams, which in return destroyed the final dreamer's mask on the black egg, which meant I could now head to the final boss fight. I traversed my way back through the spider caverns and made it to the stag station nearby, where I'd use the stag station to return back to Dirtmouth and head to the black egg. Once I made it to the black egg, its seal broke, allowing me to enter. Once entered, I'd use my crystal heart ability to fly all the way to the boss fight. I'd use the bench to set my spawn point, and I would now enter the final battle. Once inside the boss arena, I destroyed the chains keeping the boss chained up. This would release the Hollow Knight. This fight would easily be the most challenging and difficult fight yet. Not only was the fight a multi-phase fight, with each phase the boss would begin to do new moves that you would need to learn how to dodge or counter. In phase 1, the Hollow Knight primarily does a dash attack, a multi-slash attack, and a block. I found that during this phase, it was best to focus primarily on just jumping over the Hollow Knight's head and pogoing off him, and then slashing him from behind, then rinse and repeat. This ended up being a pretty successful strategy for me. Phase 2 is where shit really hit the fan for me. In Phase 2, the Hollow Knight now gets 2 new attacks. One is where it shoots fireballs out of its arm and launches them at you. This attack for some reason just gave me non-stop issues. And the second attack is where it would raise these fire-looking pillars out of the ground. This attack was fairly easy to dodge, but this was another attack where if you messed up, it took 2 of your lives. An important thing to mention is that during this boss fight, you don't get a lot of time to heal. In fact, you only have time to heal when you stun the boss. So you get the options of either healing or doing a bit more damage. This second phase would be where I'd hit my wall. For about an hour and a half, I was just stuck on this phase, dying time and time again. It started as a fun fight and began to get infuriating very quickly. It felt like victory is so close, but felt so far away. I tried changing which charms I was using, and it didn't really do much. I knew this was going to be a battle of endurance, and I was determined to win. So I kept going in, over and over again, confident that I would eventually beat the Hollow Knight. Eventually, I finally managed to push the Hollow Knight into its third phase. Here, the Hollow Knight would stab itself and begin to turn into this weird infected looking creature that would slam into the ground trying to crush me. But the Hollow Knight's attacks were a lot slower. There is some lore about why the Hollow Knight stabbed itself. Long story short, the Hollow Knight pretty much said fuck this and decided to help us defeat it. With the Hollow Knight slowed, it became an easy target. I began slowly picking away at its health, still playing fairly cautiously until finally I beat the Hollow Knight.
Let's fucking go! Fuck you, Hollow Knight. I am the winner! Only took me like 3 hours of fighting you non-stop. Let's suck up that soul! Fucking nom 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 nom. Mine, bitch. Give him the good old slurp. That good old Glock 9000. And boom, his soul is mine. I own him. With the defeat of the Hollow Knight, I would now give it a good old suck and take its essence, but only to find out in doing so, I would now get sealed away inside the black egg, becoming the new vessel for the Hollow. Now to say my Hollow Knight experience was amazing is an understatement. From the stunning visuals to the boss fights that never feel like they are all following the same pattern, I fell in love with this game. Even though I raged a lot, I still enjoyed my time playing the game, and I would definitely consider doing a 100% run or practicing the speed run. Now, if you did end up making it all the way to the end of this video, make sure to subscribe. It helps the channel out a lot and lets YouTube know you actually enjoyed the video. And also, consider watching one of the videos up on your screen right now.